This is the grade 12 IT exam paper for November 2020, the PRAC exam or paper 1 for the National Senior Certificate. And in this video, we're looking at the last question, question 4, which is normally a complex question or a question on arrays. So let's go look at it. So the last question, I tend to straight away see if we can find anything on 2D arrays or something like that, or normal arrays. Let's see it. It's very difficult to prepare for with regard to what they're going to ask. They could ask anything. It requires some sort of thinking. Hopefully in your previous questions, you've done enough there to not only do the code that you normally get to make sure that you've got extra time for this question. But let's have a look. So we've got something to do with a ship. There we go. We've got harbor. We've got a container. So let's read. So they tell us that there's an array, so that's a 1D array, so that's a good sign. I like 1D arrays. That has real numbers, okay? And we declared with the maximum size of 50, and it's going to store random numbers, okay? So let's go to 1.1. Write code to generate 50 random values rounded to one decimal place. Okay, so we want decimal numbers for this thing. So if I look there, yeah, you can see there are some decimal numbers being displayed. So we want 50 random numbers from 1 to 99, but they must be decimal numbers. So how do we get random numbers for decimals? If we can't do this, then they have given us an option of using this temp containers, so that if we can't do this, you can use that. So let's go look at it. When we click on this button, we need to generate. So they've done all that, and they've enabled the button. So we're going to have a for loop that goes from 1 until 50. 1 until 50. So that's what we want to do. And we want to generate. Let me press enter. It's made the variable for me. Fantastic. Begin enter. We want to generate random numbers that are going to go into this array containers at position R. We want it to equal to a random number. Now, there are lots of ways of generating a random number. If we want a random number from RandomRange, now, RandomRange, see it's selected. That means there's math that has been added. They've added math for me already at the top. That's great. You can use RandomRange whenever there's math at the top. If it goes red, remember to add red at the top. So 1 to 99. Okay, so 1 to 99, so that's my random number. Now to get, that'll be a whole number. Now how do I get a decimal number? Now there is a random function that you can just write like that, and that will generate just a random number. Okay, so that'll just generate a random number. So that will take the 1 to 99 and add this decimal number, that a random number that's between 0 and 1 normally. That's what that random normally does. And I want to make sure that I round it to one decimal place. Now there is a round to function. I'll put it in capital so you can remember round to, because we want to round it to one decimal place. And you would think that it would be comma 1. So we want to round all of this to 1. But for decimal numbers, if it's decimal places, it's -1 or -2. So we want to put a -1 there. Okay, so that's what you can do. There's another way that you could have done it, but they wanted round, but you could have also done something like where you generate a random number, so random range from 10 to 999, like that, for example. And so that would obviously generate a number like that, and then you divide that by 10. So if it generates a number like 569, it would actually, divided by 10, it would actually make it 56.9. So you could do that, but that's not rounding what they say. I don't know how specific that would allow you to do that, but that is another option that you could do. So we generate some random numbers, and I think that's it. Is that it? It's 4 marks, generate random numbers. That seems like it. Okay, they don't talk about displaying it. Okay, so we'll test it now to see if it works. Now the problem with random numbers is that our data will not look like this. It's going to be very different. So just remember that our program will not look like these numbers, because these random numbers will be different to our random numbers. So I write code to display the weight of the containers from the containers array in 5 rows and 10 columns. So we're going to display it like that in a rich edit. Okay, so a rich edit, we're going to display it line by line. So we're going to display this line first. So we need to build that line by line. So for me to do that, I'm just going to do one line, and then from there we can go from there. So I know that there's going to be 10 values in the line. Okay, so there we go. So 10 values in that line. Let's go to this double. Yeah. So I'm going to have a for loop that goes from 1 until 10. And I'm going to need some sort of string that's got that. So I want to make a string called sline of type string, and I need this, not sline, And I obviously need my for loop variable of type integer. Okay, so let's just keep going. Now we can do that. So I'm going to do this. Begin end. What I'm going to do, this is the end of the for loop. And we're going to say sline is equal to whatever is in sline. So that means we need to initialize sline to something. Let's give it nothing. And we're going to add on to it. We can add to whatever's in the array containers. Containers, it is containers, eh? Containers at position R. So this will only do the first 10 of them. Okay. It'll add it on, but that is a real number. We must convert it from a float to a string. It's already rounded, so I'm not going to stress about why did I spell it wrong? I'm not going to stress about float to string f because it's already been rounded, so it'll only be one decimal number. So take sline, and we're going to add on this string, and then I'm going to add on a #9 for a tab, so that when we do this the next time, it'll add number 2 to the end, but it won't add it right next to it. It'll add a little gap, and then so on and so on and so on. So that's what I think will work. Okay, and then once it is done, then we can say rich, I think not rich edit, I think it's step 1, yep. Dot lines, dot add, we're going to add sline. Let's just see if that works. Okay, let's see if we get a nice little row of lines. Okay, so let's run it. We just want the first line to work, basically. So we first generate some random numbers and then display 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Fantastic. So there's 10 numbers. So now I just need to repeat this 5 times for each row. So I'm going to have a for loop over here for the row. I'll call it our row. That goes from 1 to 5 because we're going to do this 5 times. And let's go begin. And then I can add all these things in a little bit just so I can see the difference of what's happening. And that's the end of the R row for loop. Okay, so there we go. So let's do that 5 times, and we must obviously declare our row as a an integer, sorry. So let's do that. I know that's not going to work, but let's just see what it does for interest's sake. Display it, and it displays it like it displays the same row multiple times. It never moves on to the next one. I'm assuming it's impossible for it to generate the same random numbers in the same place all the time. Okay, so what is happening here? Okay, well, for the first row, it's easy because we're going to go from 1 to 10. That's easy. But then when we do it a 5th time, we actually, after the first row, we've done 1 to 10. 1 to 10. The next row needs to be 11 to 20. So when this R, I can't make this go from 1 to 50. I still want to keep it going to 10. So I actually can't use R. I need to actually keep track of each one that I use. So I'm going to use, let's keep track. I'll call it R track because I'm keeping track of it. And we're going to start off with R track equaling 1. And I'm not going to do it there. I'm going to do it before the loop, actually. I'm going to do it here. R track, this is going to keep track of which container we are referring to. R track is 1. And then we're going to add R track to the string and the loop. And then I'm going to increase R track. So I'm making my own for loop variable. But the nice thing about this is once it gets to 10, this will be 10, R will be 10. Once it gets to 10, it'll display sline. But now R track will move to 11. And when I display when I go to this for the second time, R track will be at 11. So it'll do 11, 12, 13 up until 20 and before display. So it's not using this R value, which is going 1 to 10. It's using R track, which is going from 1 to 10, but after 10 it'll go to 11, 12, 13, where R just stays 1 to 10. Let's see if that works. So the trick here is just having this little tracking variable that's going to keep track of everything. Display. There we go. That looks much better. So we can see they displays 1 to 10 and does that 5 times. So the key here, when you're doing like lots of table stuff, get one row working, and once you do that, then you can put your loop around it to repeat it multiple times and find out what the little tricks are there. So only trick there was I don't want to use 1 to 10 every time. I want to use 10, then 11, and 12, and so on. So that's why I have this tracking variable, which I set to 1 here. I don't want to do it here because when it does the second line, it's going to set it to 1 and go 1 to 10 again. No, we want to set it to 1 outside the loop there at the top, so that when we finish the first row of 10, it'll make it an 11 and go from 11 to 20, and then 21 to 30, and blah blah fish space. So yeah, whew, that wasn't too bad. Let's go to the next one. So 4.2. The ship in the harbor must be loaded. I hope you note we haven't seen any 2D arrays, so that's a positive sign. I prefer 1D arrays to 2D arrays, but we can do 2D arrays if we need to. It contains multiple containers from one-dimensional array. Yeah, we just got that. The total weight on the ship must be as close as possible, but not exceeding 200 tons. So all these values represent tons. Okay, so we must load onto from this array until the maximum amount is reached. If added, the weight causes the total weight to exceed. It mustn't go over 200. The specific container must not. So if we add a container and it goes over 200, it mustn't be added. The program must search row by row through the remaining containers until we get to the maximum weight. Okay. So if we look at, so let's use this example here. So let's look here. So if we add those first 5 numbers, they tell me add up to 173.5 tons. If I add 97, I'm going to be over 200, so I can't add that. If I add that one, it'll be over 200. If I add 15, it'll be fine. I can't add the 39, and I might be able to add that 1.4 there if I get to it. So that might be enough for me to get the total. So we've basically got to go through each and every value in our array, not in this table, but just in our containers array, and add values until we get to 200. And we mustn't ever add a value that makes it go above 200. And every time we add a value, we must add it to some sort of string that we're going to put into this. Okay, so I looked at the question ahead and I saw that they actually gave us a 2D array over here for some reason. Where's the 2D? There's a 2D array declared us. It's optional, so I think you can use that if you want to. Maybe in the previous question you might have wanted to use it, but let's go here. Let's see how we're going to do this. Okay, so we're obviously going to sum the weights. That's the first thing we're going to be doing. So I'm going to go have a variable for our sum, and that will be a real because we add in real. So don't make it our sum, make it our sum. Okay, so we're going to have a sum variable, and we're going to initialize our sum variable to 0, and we need to loop through all the values in the containers array. But I don't know how many times I'm going to do that loop. I must stop at some point, or I could have to stop. So I'm going to actually have a looping variable, which keeps track of which ones that we are doing. So when we manually create our looping variable, so we set it to 1, and we are going to loop while our loop is less than equal to 50, or less than 50. While it's less than 50, do this loop. When it gets to 50, we can stop. Actually less than equal to. If it goes above 50, then we can stop. What are we doing? We want to add on to this array. Okay, we want to add values to the array. So my rsum, I actually only want to add on to rsum if, so rsum is going to have some sort of value. If, okay, I'm going to say if we add on to our rsum, mispronounced, if rsum plus the value in the container at this position of our loop. So let's say position 1. If I add that and the rsum together, if that value is greater than 200, then that means I don't want to add it. So I want it when it's less than 200. So if it's less than equal to 200, then what I want to do, if it's less, then I can say rsum is equal to rsum. I only want to add it if I do add it, it still remains under 200. Then add this r containers square I loop. So get position 1. If position 1 plus the current sum is less than 200, then add it. We can add it. And then I also need the string that I'm going to add. So I need a string, which I'm going to be very similar to what we did in the previous one. We're going to initialize it to some sort of null string. And when we get a value, we can say sline is equal to sline plus whatever r containers is in the loop value, basically that, but that is a string, a real, so it's converted from a float to a string, so I can fit into my string variable, and then I'm going to plus a hash 9, so we can have a gap. I'm assuming we're going to have some gaps there. Yeah, I think there's enough gaps. I don't think we need to go one after each other, so just like that's fine. They don't specify that you must put it in rows of 10 or anything like that. Okay, so I think that's fine. Okay, so we can do that. So every time we add a value, we can do that. And then once we finish, then we must just increase our loop variable, so we move on to the second value in the container. And we must keep doing this until we get to the end, or we can stop when we get to the end, or we can stop when our sum variable, if our sum variable ever goes greater than 200, then we can also, so while it's less than 200, we must keep doing this loop. If it goes above, if it equals 200, we can stop. Okay, so I think that's going to work. And then we just need to display that in the rich edit for the q4.lines.add. We're going to add s-line, and then there we go. So basically, so we started with 0. We look at the first container. If we add it, is it less than 200? Yes. So we add it, and we add it to the string. And then we add the next one, and next one, next one. And every time we get to one that, if we add it, it goes too much over. Then we don't add it. We just move to the next one. And we keep on going through right until 50 for all of them until we get to 200 exactly. Okay, if it gets to 200 exactly, it shouldn't go above 200 because we're never going to add one that makes it go above. If the sum plus is greater, sorry, that must be greater. If it's less than, we want it to be less than, because we only want to add it if it's less than or equal to 200. There, sorry, my bad. Okay, I think that's right. Is that all? Right. Okay, display the weight. Yes, write the weight of the containers to a new text file called tons.txt. Okay, so there it's a little bit at the end. So then we can just go, okay, so we must assign file to a text file. Do we have a text file? No, we don't. We must have a text file. F of type text file. Oh, this video is taking long. So assign F to a text file called tons.txt, and it must be a new text file. So we are going to rewrite F, and then we can write line to F this S-line text, and then we can close the file of F. I think that will work. And just display, so just display it to there. I think that's all. Is that it? It's 18 marks. It seems a bit short for 18 marks. Maybe it's just the complexity of it. So let's test it to see if it works. So let's run it. Hopefully my creating a text file won't cause an error with my antivirus. And so we display. Okay, so if we add up enough of those, so that plus that plus that plus that, I think those will fit into 200. I don't think the 60 will fit. No, the 90 won't fit. The 15 might fit. That won't fit. That won't fit. So we'll definitely be able to get the first 5 plus the 15 our rate. So let's have a look. So we got the 17, we got the 60, we got the 43, we got the 41. We got the 24. I didn't even add the 15, so maybe it wasn't enough. Yeah, it wouldn't have been enough for the 15. You're correct. And it goes until the 2.2. And after that, there's nothing else that can be added. So let's generate some new ones. So there we go. So let's display. So we've added the 11, the 74, the 10, the 6, the 16. We can't add this. Oh, we can add the 60. We can't add the 50. We can add the 3 though. We can't add anything else except for the 9, and then the 3.2, and there, after that there's nothing else we can add. So there we are. I think that works. I think that is what they want. If I go to the actual files, maybe they will show me that there's a tons.txt that's been created. I can see if there's anything inside here. Let's open it, see what's inside it. And there the value is all nicely laid out. So that text file was created with the current value. So I think that's it. Hopefully that is correct. So there we go. That's question 4. It is quite a complicated question. As I said, my strategy for the last question is make sure that you give yourself enough time for the last question. And you do that by knowing your stuff for question 1, 2, and 3 well, so that you can give yourself a bit more thinking time, because the last question does require some sort of calculation and thinking in order to complete. So there we go. Well done, everyone. For more videos from this exam paper, as well as the other videos from other exam papers, go to our playlists on our YouTube channel, click on that subscribe button, leave us a like, leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you. And remember, don't do it the long way, do it the Mr. Long way.